I'm Mike Asnault, and welcome to the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge's AC23 Plus Artist Legacy Series podcast. This is a series where we talk to artists who are doing amazing things in the areas of the arts, including performance, education, production, as well as arts advocacy. We record this series in the Virginia and John Nolan Black Box Studio, as well as in the Jan and Bill Grimes recording studio here at the Carrie Siraj Community Arts Center. Be sure to visit artsbr.org for more information on all the great things we are doing here at the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. Hope you enjoyed the podcast series, and thanks for tuning in. That was beautiful, man.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'd like to welcome all our viewers and listeners to the AC23 Plus Artist Legacy Series here at the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. And today I have the real pleasure of introducing my new good friend, Charlie Ruah. And that was gorgeous, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Charlie's going to be playing tonight here at the Arts Council's Black Box Theater, the Virginia and John Nolan Black Box Theater. And that's 7:30 tonight.
7:30, yeah.
Okay. And solo guitar.
Mm-hmm. Solo acoustic.
Looking forward to that. I'll be able to attend tonight. So
oh, thanks. Really, yeah, I'm thrilled you're going to be there.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the discussion, what was that you just played?
That was a piece from my album, The Bluebell, that's all solo guitar stuff inspired by the poetry of Anne and Emily Bronte. And that one is called Though Weak Yet Longing to Believe, which is named for a line in Anne Bronte's poem, The Doubter's Prayer, which is one of my favorites. It's basically Anne just talking about how she's she was a pretty conflicted person and just always trying to push herself to be, the best that she could be. And this is a poem that a really vulnerable statement on her end of just talking about how she feels like she's not measuring up and how she wants to be more. And it's just very, I read it often, and I just find it really moving and inspiring. But there's a cool little story behind it. When I was writing the music for this album, I was sort of selecting the poems that I wanted to work with from Anne and Emily. And I was on tour at the time. I was in an airport in Portland just reading through the poems, and I really wanted to do something for that poem. And I was having a hard time just sort of internalizing it to make music. And I had this idea. So I got my guitar out and went in a corner so no one could hear me. And I started playing this. And I got my phone out and I started making a voice memo so I wouldn't forget it. And then I was listening back and I was like, this isn't good enough. It just sounds lame. I'm not into it. And I was really bummed out about it. Mm-hmm. So I start putting my guitar away, and then I look up, and there's this little girl standing in front of me that I had not heard walk up. It actually kind of scared me. But she, couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, and she's just standing there looking at me, and I just was kind of startled. And she says, "I like your song," and then ran away. So I was like, well, now I have to keep it. Yeah, it was like a little message, but it was just kind of an interesting situation because I was feeling, I think I was just kind of reading a lot into what Anne was saying, and I started feeling the same way. It was like no matter what I did, I felt like it wasn't going to be good enough.
Oh, I see.
And I kind of needed, a reminder of, well, maybe what you're doing is enough. And that kind of, made the poem hit harder for me, because I'm like, I really hope at some point before she passed away that someone gave that to her too, to Anne.
Right.
So it was, that's a really special one for me to play live, because I every time I play it live, I think about that little girl in the airport. So I wanted to start off with that one.
That's beautiful, man. Well, so you do a lot of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it was inspired by poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you, like, when you're writing, I know for me, if I'm writing, it comes to me in different ways. And I'm asking you, is that the same case? Like, do you sometimes write a piece and then, really have to spend a lot of time on it, crafting it, and did you have some that just come to you instantly and it's done, almost in a finished form?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a combination of the two. Something that happens to me a lot is I'll start kind of playing something and figure out what it's about later, if that makes any sense. Yeah. A lot of the time I'll play something and I'll think I'm just playing something that I think sounds good, but then I'll realize that what I was actually thinking about was inspired by something, and in my particular case, often something I read. So yeah, sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I really want to write about something and I can't think of anything.
Right.
And sometimes I'm not trying at all and it just kind of comes out. So and the form that I like to use, as you just heard, is I like to write miniature pieces. So that's just something I fell into naturally, of writing sort of miniature lullaby forms. So yeah, I mean, for me, by that nature, I'm pretty lucky, I guess, because it's not hard to, write or record those songs, because once I practice them, I can make a whole record in under an hour.
Right.
So
right. Yeah.
so for me, it's a little different than a lot of people, where you have to get an ensemble together, or you have to really work out, all the parts with your vocal and your instrument or something. For me, it's just me and my guitar playing miniature songs.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that just sort of like naturally developed, because I didn't always write that way, but it just started happening. So that's a big part of how the writing process developed for me.
Now, in our brief conversation, just kind of getting to know each other prior to this recording, we talked a little bit, like you obviously are an improvising musician, studied jazz, or you've been influenced by a lot of those musicians, those types of musicians. So does a lot of that, the beginning of that compositional process, kind of start with just improvisation, fooling with the instrument and listening and, that way, or is it? Yeah, I get the impression that's kind of...
Yeah, sometimes. Not always. I don't really have a set routine, but absolutely. Sometimes, especially when I'm writing about the literature-inspired music, sometimes I'll find a poem and I really like it, and I just spend, a few weeks or a month reading it over and over every day, and I just improvise.
Right.
And I'm just like throwing out, emptying my brain through improvisation, and every now and then, in that improvisation, something clicks. Like I'm sure that's happened with you many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes improvisation is definitely a way in. And then sometimes I don't want to improvise. Sometimes I want to not play until like I feel like I have an idea.
Yeah.
But it changes, I think.
Yeah. I remember reading an interview one time with the guitarist, Pat Metheny.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the compositional process and how he was having a discussion with Jerry Goldsmith, the famous film composer. And Jerry was kind of, well, he just said, yeah, you jazzers, y'all, all you do is play what you can, all you do is write what you can play. And Metheny's like, well, that really struck with him, because he's right. Like, his tendency was to go to the instrument and, what comes out is what his fingers are capable of doing at that time. So he just made himself, I can't remember the tune, what the result was. Maybe it was a full circle or one of those tunes. But he said he didn't go to the guitar. He just kind of sat down at the desk and really thought about it and wrote it out that way. And I was like, wow, just kind of, as a composer, just the challenge of that, like making myself do it a different way.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, that it was a real breakthrough for me when I started writing a lot of music about things that I read, the literature-inspired lullabies, because I felt like it did that for me, because I wasn't just sitting down and using my vocabulary to write. I was taking something and I had to represent it somehow.
Yeah.
So that wound up pushing me into like different chord voicings and different melodies that I never would have come up with if I wasn't trying to translate the writing.
Right.
So I think that conversation that they had, it is important for all musicians, I think, to just find a way to constantly be a little uncomfortable, and not just sit down and be like, we've all put so much work into, honing our craft on an instrument, and not to rest on that.
Right.
And, and to be like, well, what's something that's going to push me out of it and let me utilize that work in a new way every time, or at least that's the hope. But
I know for me, like I've never, and you've already challenged me to investigate poetry and using that as an inspiration. But I know in my background, because I've found myself writing a lot, for picture, like for films and that type of stuff. But that's kind of almost now that I think about it, it's in a similar way where
absolutely
the framework is kind of given to you. The mood is somewhat dictated. There's different ways you can interpret it, but in a way, it kind of helps the compositional process.
Yeah.
To have a direction.
Yeah. And I would imagine when you're writing for film, because you've done so much of it, it's not like you have a template. You're like, well, I'm writing for film. This is what writing for film is. It's like you're taking the project and you're like, what does this project need?
Everyone's completely different.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really no different at all from what I'm talking about with literature and composing for film, because you can only use what you have, but you can use what you have in a different way if you're trying to reach for something else. So I imagine composing for film, it must be similar to that.
I think so.
I a big composer I really love is Max Richter. With his film scores.
Yeah, classic.
And he's cool because I feel like what I like about him is he's definitely got a thing.
He's got his sound.
Yeah, he's got his sound, but every score really is, it really does fit that project. Or I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and I really love Sleep, his project Sleep, and all that stuff. So he's a good example of what we're talking about, where it's like you can have sort of your identity, but you're sort of like reintroducing it by the project.
Right. A film composer for me that does that today is Thomas Newman. He's another one where I don't know how much you've listened. Well, we've all listened to him and maybe not known it, but because he's done so many films. But he's a guy too that, within 2 or 3 chords, because of the way he voices chords, whether it's on the piano or in the orchestra, very shortly it's him. Yeah. Or that sound.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful how he can take his identity and morph it into a film project where one score is really completely different than the other one. Yeah. But it's him.
Yeah.
That's a real art form.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, tell me about your background. So was guitar your first instrument?
No, I actually, the first thing I ever played was upright bass.
Oh, really?
Because I grew up watching a lot of old movies. My mom is a big classic film fan, and I grew up, having those movies on from the 30s and 40s, like, Maltese Falcon and stuff like that, and Double Indemnity and a lot of those movies. And I really like the music in that, the film scores in it. And in a lot of those movies, there was also like a jazz element for the time. And I really like that combination of jazz and cinematic score.
Sure.
I like that sound. So I wanted to learn how to play music and somehow be connected to that. And when I was in 4th grade, I tried playing upright bass, but it didn't really work out. It was really hard for me to play.
That's a hard instrument.
Yeah, it's a hard instrument. I was a very small child. I'm not a big guy, but when I was a kid, I was really small. So that didn't really work out. So I switched over to clarinet and alto saxophone. And I was mainly a jazz musician through my teens. My father's a guitar player, and as I got a little older, I took an interest in that, so he taught me how to play guitar. Okay. So guitar came later. I started playing when I was around 13. But it very swiftly took over because I could play by myself. I could, it's like a little I started feeling like it was a little orchestra or an ensemble. Like I could play multiple notes at the same time. I could fully form songs. So yeah, guitar, took over, but it did come later. Yeah.
Okay. I'm always jealous of guys like y'all because as a pianist, yeah, we're kindred spirits in that we can play by ourselves and it sounds complete, but I can't just go from the living room to the kitchen with the piano. Guitar, you can.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I love the mobility of it and being able to try the troubadour element of it. Yeah, it is very special. Yeah.
I know for me, my recent answer to that, it's kind of more recent, the past couple of years, is learning accordion.
Oh yeah.
For the kind of, I love, well, there's something too about that, and I guess I know you experienced that with guitar, having the instrument so close to you and resonating. And as soon as I started playing accordion, I was like, wow. I love the piano, dearly, but this is a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And like accordion and acoustic guitar, like you can really feel the vibrations of it.
Yeah.
And it's a very tactile experience. Mm-hmm. For about 20 years, when I was a guitarist, when I started as a guitarist, I only played electric guitar. And around 2017, I started getting into acoustic for that reason, because I was like, I used to like to play electric guitar with reverb and delay and stuff, and I still do. It's fun, but I realized the reason I was doing it is because I was trying to just make it sound like an acoustic guitar that has natural overtones,
right?
And that has, when you play an acoustic guitar, especially alone, it's a duet. Like you can feel the thing responding in ways you like and ways you don't like, and you're kind of like having this like conversation with it until you meet in the middle. And it's really cool. Yeah. So cool. There is an element of that. I can see how accordion would be similar too. Yeah.
The only difference is, we're doing this after a while. I'm still trying to get the chops together.
Yeah. No, that's hard. Yeah.
So you're originally from where? Like, where'd you grow up and where did it all start?
I was born in Virginia, Northern Virginia, in Alexandria, and then my family moved when I was really young to Alabama. So that's where I grew up mostly, and sort of my formative years when I started playing clarinet. And then my family moved back to Virginia, Northern Virginia, in my teens. So that's where I went to high school, and then later for a couple of years at Shenandoah to study jazz and conservatory.
Yeah. So once you finished that, to kind of take me through the route, so you went from there to, like when you started working as a musician.
So I left Shenandoah after 2 years, and I moved to Nashville in Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I got started.
There's no guitar players over there.
I kind of like bit off way more than I could chew with that being my first big move in my early 20s, but. It was a grinding process. I never made a living as a musician in Nashville. I always had various like crazy day jobs. Like I was a chimney sweep for a while.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I was a chimney sweep, window repairman. Worked in a shipping and receiving in a shoe store. I worked the front desk at a really sketchy hotel. Like a lot of weird stuff happened there that I'm not going to say on the podcast.
Okay.
But so I was doing that, and then at night I was out gigging, and I did some teaching. And a good friend of mine to this day, Jim Riley, who's a producer, I just happened to be in the audience when I was backing up a singer-songwriter in East Nashville one night. And he asked me if I ever did recording work, and I hadn't, but I was like, but I want to.
Yeah.
So he, due to his kindness and just his outreach, he brought me in on my first professional recording work and introduced me to other, session players in Nashville. So I got my feet wet in Nashville the last couple of years I was there doing studio work, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of those people, learned a lot. The first sessions I did were all recorded to tape, so that was pretty intense. But that kind of shaped my approach to recording when I moved to New York. And I pretty quickly was able to carve out a living in New York full-time with music when I got there. So I was in Nashville for 4 years, started doing professional work, but not full-time, pretty much the last year. And then I moved to New York and was able to start building on that. On making a living at it.
Yeah. Well, so I would imagine that was quite different, though. When I think of Nashville and, what you typically hear coming out of that area and moving to New York, where Lord knows what you get. I mean, there's so much going on in New York.
Yeah.
What was that scene like when you showed up there?
Well, it was interesting because being a musician in New York is obviously it's not easy. It has its challenges like anywhere. But one thing that is really cool about it is just how wide a variety of things. Like you said, there's so many things happening. So many styles are just being thrown around, and also the population, the professional population, is so transient. People are, for instance, I'm in Louisiana right now, so I called up a buddy of mine, and he's covering my gigs while I'm gone,
Right.
like the gigs that I have there.
Yeah.
That happens so much. So when I moved there, I was able to hop in on so much stuff because I would meet people that I got along with, and they're like, hey, would you mind covering these gigs? Because I'm going to go on tour. And through those gigs, I met other people, and other people. I wound up getting more and more recording work and sideman work. And for a while, I was way more focused on that and not composing as much. Just like getting established that way. I mean, it's still predominantly how I make a living.
Right.
But yeah, New York was just certain things about it can facilitate certain strategies, if that makes sense. Like if you're the kind of person that has a lot of energy and likes to go out, you can get a lot of work like pretty quick in New York. But if you're not, if you are more on the reserve side and you just kind of want to like take your time, it can be pretty brutal. I've seen it destroy people like that.
Sure.
So
The one thing I've learned over the years as a musician and just an artist, I guess, is the power of networking, and of course these days with the aid of social media and all that business, it just happens so fast. But
yeah, I just tagged you.
I saw that. We're friends in so many ways.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing I have a whole lot of faith in. Is just and it's reassuring and there's another thing about in music particularly, I feel like when you're able to make music with somebody, even if it's just a duo situation, there's a connection, and it's different from just a typical friendship. There's a empathetic thing that happens or might not happen. It just depends, but that's very lasting, and it's and that network can grow really quickly of this type.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that counts for a lot. I mean, because people remember. People remember very specific things. They remember if you were a real jerk, in the studio. They remember if you were a pain, or they remember, that person was pretty easy to get along with, and didn't argue with the producer. Wasn't always trying to like step on people's toes.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Well, I want to get you to. I want you to play some more. So
okay.
Play something for me and tell me what it is.
Okay, yeah. I'll play a little bit of a recent project of mine called Angels of Annunciation. And this is a project that I wanted to do for a while, inspired by Anne Morrow Lindbergh's writing. So mostly known as the wife of Charles Lindbergh, but very little, in my opinion, known just for what a brilliant writer she was and thinker she was. So she wrote a lot of really cool memoirs about when she was Charles's co-pilot, and just their sort of adventures, surveying flights, around the world. And she wrote really beautiful poems that are some of my favorite I've ever read, actually. And she also wrote this really great book called Gift from the Sea. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
No.
It's really awesome. So she had a cottage, a summer cottage that she would go to, like sort of a writer retreat. And she wrote this when she was staying there, and she would go for a walk every morning, and she would pick up a shell, and depending on what kind of shell it was, that was the name of the chapter for the book. And the book is basically talking about just the stages of life and like getting older and what you notice happening, and like it's just a really beautiful observation on life and aging. And I took the name Angels of Annunciation from a quote when she says that you might see, change and things happening as being, sort of something to oppose. Like if bad things are happening, you need to fight back against them. And she says they might not be I'm paraphrasing, but they might not be demons. They might be angels of annunciation. They might be, like announcing a change that you need to pay attention to. You might be missing something. So on that record, I kind of made this one. I gave a few nods to an experiential element, which I've never done before. So when she was a co-pilot for Charles, they would do. She was the radio operator as well, and they would, to maximize flight time, they would each sleep for about 4-minute increments, and then like tap each other, and the other one would take the controls.
4 minute?
Yeah, they would take these like tiny naps, like to just like be able to stay longer and make their deadlines. And all the while, Anne was also on the radio, relaying their locations and stuff. So on the actual recording, it's an EP, but I broke it up with a little motif that I named after shorthand radio signals. And that little motif sounds like this. So it's just that, and I added that at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, and that combined with all of the music, when it's played on the recording, equals the amount of time of each of them having a sleep break. So it's kind of like a little Easter egg in there for people, and that's from her book, North to the Orient. So I'll play a little bit of that. I'll play the title track, Angels of Annunciation, to it.
Yeah. Nice. It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Watching that, we were in our previous conversation leading up to the interview. It just reminds me how spoiled us as pianists are when it comes to playing solo, because you guys have such a challenge. You make it look so easy, but I know that you have to negotiate melody with harmony, and it's just to execute and produce as many notes on as you can on the piano. It's impossible, but there's a real art form to solo guitar.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you too, because you do these solo concerts, but you also play in groups, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does that affect you when you're performing? When you're up here, when you're up in front of an audience by yourself, and it's just you. Does that have a different gravitas as far as prep for the concert, or just how you negotiate those challenges?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely when I'm going to perform live solo, I think about what I want to play. I often write out the tunes I want to play. I memorize the order I want to play them in, and I film myself talking and playing.
Oh, really?
And I rehearse, not as a script, but I get used to talking, introducing the songs, talking after the songs. I imagine, reactions in my mind, like from, and how I would react to various scenarios. And then I mix up the order of the songs I want to play. But I basically just make sure that I've lived into the experience before I actually go do it. And I don't do that when I'm playing as a sideman. I learn the music because no one's looking at me. I just make sure that I'm not going to let down the artist. I make sure that I have the music learned and but I don't need to worry about engagement as much because I'm standing behind them and they're doing that.
Right.
So the big difference is I just try to create in advance what I think it's going to feel like to play that concert.
Yeah.
And then, I don't always say what I practice saying, but I know that I already said it. So, and I know how to talk about it.
Right.
And I think that's important too. I think it's important not only to rehearse music, but rehearse, being a performer, or at least I need to do that. It's not something that comes naturally enough to me to just be like, oh, I'll just show up somewhere and I'll know how to talk to an audience.
Right.
I need to practice that out of
Sure.
respect for the audience. So,
yeah. And that's a good point. I think, so when people come to a show and obviously they want to hear, in this case, they want to hear the music, but you can obviously do that. You can go online and you can listen to the music.
yeah.
But that concert experience, that live experience, I think that's a big part of it. It's just that communication with the audience and giving them that. And in your case, especially with the stories behind the songs, it's important to relay that, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think engagement, in especially in the current era, like a personal engagement through art has never been more important. In a lot of ways, I feel like art has been, in a lot of ways, it's been devalued. It's been made into something else. It's been made into something that's just sort of there.
Right.
So if you can make it something that's really special, then I think an audience appreciates that. Even if they don't know it per se, they might walk away wondering why they feel differently, from other experiences, and oh, maybe it's because the performer actually engaged.
Sure.
So
yeah. Well, especially this day and age where, obviously AI has its place in our society, but one thing that it can't really touch, I think, is just that personal, artistic, in the moment thing.
Yeah, no way. Well, it's soul.
It's soul, yeah.
Spontaneity, instinct, experience that can't be recreated.
Right.
It has to come from a living thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm curious. I hear a lot of influences in your playing, but who are some of the people that artistically, guitar-wise, influenced you?
Guitar-wise, early on, when I was a teenager, I was really into Django Reinhardt, like we were talking about earlier. I really admire his very personal approach to the instrument. I really like his solo stuff, actually, when he plays solo arrangements of some of the jazz tunes and sort of the gypsy tunes that he played. I remember really liking that as a kid. I really, as of late, I've actually, I've been really psyched from recording sessions when I play with other people. I've been getting compared to James Taylor's guitar playing a lot,
yeah. I can
which
hear that.
which I'm really excited about because that's recent and I love his playing.
He's a hero of mine.
Yeah,
just as an artist.
Yeah. Both of my parents are big fans of his, so I grew up hearing that stuff. But I always really liked his guitar playing, which doesn't, in the guitar world, didn't get talked about nearly enough.
Well, I'm not a guitar player. I don't know much about guitar playing. But so, what is it about his playing that makes it sound the way it does? Just in a nutshell.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a very idiosyncratic, personal way of approaching texture. It's the way he accompanies himself or the way he accompanies other people. It's just very. I feel like it's very distinctive, and it's very simple, but also just really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Another player on that level is Glenn Campbell for me.
Oh, wow.
I'm a huge Glenn Campbell fan. I love those records. I love his, all the stuff he did with the Wrecking Crew as a session player.
Yeah.
But his guitar playing, specifically the way he accompanies when he's singing, when he's playing acoustic, like the way he accompanies himself, that's the stuff I like the most.
Yeah.
Obviously his solos are great, but I'm just like really drawn to that type of guitar playing, that sort of getting creative with support, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I always found it interesting learning about that involvement in the Wrecking Crew that he had, that he was kind of one of the most of those guys were really crack readers. I mean, they could read anything.
Yeah, and he couldn't.
Los Angeles, but he couldn't. But he was such an amazing, intuitive musician.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, it's insane. The fact that he not only could hang with them, but was one of the top calls, it's like, pretty out of control. Yeah. Another one, Johnny Marr.
Oh, yeah.
I really like, again, very creative in a supportive setting, not like shredding solos, just creating, I think of it almost like, more like we were talking about before, like orchestration on the guitar.
Yeah.
So I like guitar players like that a lot. We were talking a little bit before. Mary Halverson is a huge influence for me, which a lot of people might think, I sound nothing like her, but I really appreciate and admire her personal approach to the instrument.
Right.
And that's a big influence on me. And I love her music. So her and Julian Lodge, we were talking about him. He's another favorite of mine. So yeah.
Amazing, man. Well, you had mentioned leading up to this that you wanted to present some of the music you recorded, like more produced music. So is there a tune that you were going to do for that? Or? Yeah.
We're going to listen to a tune of mine called A Hymn to the Morning, which is the title track for my new record that's inspired by Phyllis Wheatley poems. And I wanted to release that record this year because it's the 250th anniversary of Phyllis becoming the first African-American to ever publish. And she usually gets talked about for that milestone, but I don't think Phyllis gets nearly the credit that she deserves just as an amazing writer.
Yeah.
The writing itself stands so strong, and it's so beautiful. And I think it's a shame that I learned about her as an adult when I feel like I should have learned about her in school with other poets. Like she should be up there with Emily Dickinson and other early American poets. So I wanted to make this record as a tribute to her, and I wanted to do a little something different with the record too. I invited vocalists on this one. So I composed solo guitar music as usual, but I invited a series of vocalists to add vocal textures and double the melody on the entire record.
Now, is there lyric content on it?
There's no lyric content, just voice. Yeah, I just wanted voices on it. So it turned out in a way that I'm really happy with. So yeah, I'd like to share that title track, A Hymn to the Morning, now.
Okay, well, let's have a listen. Nice, man.
Yeah, thank you.
That's tricky. You know, for a vocalist, I'm not a vocalist, but just having written for voice, it's you have to know what you're doing because you're very exposed in that kind of situation.
Yeah, and on that particular track, Jen Mundia is the vocalist, and Jen is a fantastic vocalist, songwriter as well, and a great session singer. She and I have done a lot of sessions in LA together for licensing stuff, and a lot of we've co-written some songs together for some TV and movie stuff. So I hit her up and asked her if she'd be down to do this project. And I basically just said, you know, I recorded a melody guide for the songs, and then I sent her the solo guitar thing. And all I told her was, you know, just sing the melody, and then if you feel like it, you can add any other textures you want. And she just, like, destroyed it. She sings on several tracks on the record, but yeah, she's really fantastic. And you're right. I mean, there were very specific people I asked to do this because it could easily go sideways if it's not the right person.
Right.
So,
yeah, for sure. Well, tell me, like, so you're in Baton Rouge right now, and it's not a one-off. You're down here for a little over a month, right?
Yep.
And tell me why you're down here and what's going on.
Well, I'm down here a little bit early, but to perform here tonight at the Arts Council. But starting on the 15th of August through the middle of September, I'm going to be doing a composer residency with LSU's Vet Med School.
So not the music school, but the
not the music school. Yeah, the veterinary
so
school.
Explain that
to me. So I was invited by Sandy Sarr, who's a good friend of mine and has been following my music, and we kind of came up with this idea together to try to come down here and present music with a center of wellness, so a sort of healing music approach for the animals and the staff and the clients of the Vet Med School, where I'm going to spend time sort of immersing myself, in the school with the staff, spending time with the animals and the people working with the animals, and composing music coming from a place of, again, a place of wellness, of just sort of calming and sort of meditative, just creating a space of peace and calmness and healing in an environment that can be insanely stressful and very, like just the amounts of stress and anxiety and I can't imagine the compounded emotions that are just flying around. So the idea is to spend time at the school and then compose music from a stance of wellness and healing.
Yeah. So this will be, is this a new venture for you? Have you done that type of thing before?
No, I've never done anything like this. And I've been doing a little bit of preparation of sorts. I've been finding, again, because I work with literature so often, I've been reading a lot of earlier Greek literature, and finding a lot of inspiration for the music I'll potentially write when I do start working on it. I feel like there's a lot of words in Greek that involve intangible connection, like unspoken connection. One of them that I really like, ousia, that I read about, it's more or less means essence. Just the very sort of, mystical element of the pure center of who or what something is. And then there's another one, thauria, which I really like. And that's sort of an unspoken trust, or like a gaze of trust and devotion and love with no communication, no outward communication. And I feel like a lot of these words, to me, resonate with the human to animal connection of how, whether it's domestic or wildlife, you can kind of create an environment where everybody's scared, or everybody just slowly walks away, or everybody's cool,
right,
without speaking, because obviously you can't, outwardly communicate. So I've been finding some connections through that literature that I'm going to use as kind of a way in. But who knows? When I spend time with the animals and the people at the school, that might change. But that's sort of where my head's at ahead of time. So that's how I'm kind of going into it. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I've never written in this context before, so I'm excited for it.
So will there, what does the blueprint look like on that? Is there a culminating event at the end of it, or?
Yeah, there's going to be a concert, I believe. Actually, before I say that, let me check my calendar to make sure this is right. There is going to be a concert on September 12th.
Okay.
Where I'm actually going to collaborate with members of the choir, the a cappella choir for LSU, and present the music that I'm working on.
Okay.
Because by that point it'll be nearing the end of the residency, so I'll have everything done, and so I'm gonna make a song cycle basically, probably from 6 to 9 different pieces, miniature pieces like I usually do, and some of them will incorporate the vocal. From the a cappella choir, and some will be solo guitar, depending on how all that works out. But yeah, there will be a concert and presentation on September 12th for that.
Oh, wow. Well, I hope to see that. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
yeah,
hearing
I'll
that.
keep you posted on it. Yeah,
Definitely, man. Definitely. Well, okay. You're going to do that for a month or so, but you're a traveling musician, so actually, you just came in from where?
Yeah, I was on tour in Japan and Korea with a very different project called Argonauta, which is me and Adam Sullivan, who's one of my best friends and also a really great producer in New York. So we were in Japan and Korea for our project for Argonauta, playing shows sort of in small like rock clubs, and we were scheduled to play at a festival, but that got rescheduled. So we're going to be going back to Korea in October to do that. So I was there. I just got back about a week ago from that. So.
And then anything on the books after the residency here? Or are you going to be?
Yeah, some in and out of town stuff on the East Coast with various projects. I'm playing in a couple of chamber ensembles in New York that have some out of town dates. And at some point, possibly in November, but it might be rescheduled, I'm going to be going to Germany and Holland to do some solo and duo acoustic guitar stuff with a friend of mine, Alex Florin, in Germany.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, so that's what's on the docket right now.
That's great. That's great. Well, look, I have this piano here, and I don't want to let you leave without trying to play a tune with you.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So you brought in a tune, and tell me about this tune.
Yeah, I brought in another really special one. This is going to be a lot of fun to play with you after everything we've been talking about. This is a song called Aralyn that's named after the street, Aralyn Drive, I grew up on in Huntsville, Alabama. And this is actually the first, quote, song I ever wrote. It's a melody I just used to hum a lot when I was a kid. When I was around 8, I'd be playing outside by myself and just humming this melody over and over again. And I never forgot it. So I sort of like harmonized it on guitar and recorded it a few times on a solo album of mine called Veriditas, and then on a duo album with Cameron Mizell, who's another acoustic guitarist, acoustic and electric guitarist, and another really good friend of mine. And we have a duo project for Destiny Records, the label that I'm on that's based in Texas, and that's what all of my music is available on. You can find it on my website. There's ways to stream it and listen to it and pick it up from the label. But this is on the album Veriditas is a solo piece, and then Local Folklore, duo album with Cameron Mizell. It's just a very simple melody that's a lot of fun to play in a duo setting. I've never played it with a pianist before, so I'm honored to be playing it with such a world-class pianist.
If I mess it up, my apologies.
I'm not worried. So, yeah, thanks so much for wanting to do this. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Well, since we're probably going to close on this. When people want to find you online, where do they go?
The easiest way to find me online is charlierauh.com. So my last name is spelled Rauh, and just Charlie. Rauh.com, and that has all of my music and links to my social media, and everything is there. Okay. I have all of my tour dates are listed there, so it's kind of everything is centered around there. Yeah. So that's the easiest. Yeah.
Sounds great, and I hope the show tonight goes fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I'm excited for it. Yeah.
Well, let's do this.
Yeah.
Man.
Charlie.
Yeah, man.
It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thanks for doing that.
Oh,
Sound
thank
fantastic.
you. Yeah, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure, man. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you so much.
And look forward to the next time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, that was incredible, man. You sounded amazing.
Oh, no, thank you. this is what I love. Right up my alley, man.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
Some of my, I don't know, one of my favorite pianists who would kind of come out of that ilk is Lyle.
Oh, yeah.
The Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge would like to acknowledge our generous sponsors, the Shell Corporation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, and the City of Baton Rouge.